What's going on, guys? We are back. Another video, Fantasy Rocket League. It's actually kind of a blessing in disguise for the RLCS Week 1 delay. I had no time last week to put up a fantasy team, so I was like, I'm just going to, take the season off, don't have a league or whatever. But because of the delay, Rocket League or the RLCS has not started, which means fantasy leagues are still open. So I am going to make a team, and I will show you what my team is. I just made it now. And we'll have a league. There's no money on the line in terms of my league, but we'll go into the FAQ here real quick to show you what's on the line for people just in general if you're playing fantasy. First place across, everyone that plays Fantasy Rocket League gets 9,000 credits. Second place, 6,000 credits. Third place, 3,000 credits. I believe that would be roughly $90, right? Yeah, roughly $90, roughly $60, roughly $30. I know there's like conversion rates when you go up a little bit higher in credits, but somewhere around there. So pretty good prize in all. This is very small to read, and if I zoom in, my face is going to block it, so I didn't really think about this, but there you go. Those are the credits right there. A couple notes. It's a longer league play. I believe there is a certain weeks will not count for certain leagues, and I think right now it's up in the air because of the Week 1 delay, how everything's going to exactly work out. But here's a way to look at it. This is how it was. We'll see how they do it now. I'm going to scroll this over here real quick. So what the plan was, what counts is because Sam starts in Week 2, which is now EU and NA are going to start that same week, I guess. The last 2 weeks of OC did not count. Now that might be only 1 week where it doesn't count for OC. We're not really sure exactly how that's all going to play out. One thing to note, you only get 2 transfers per week, so you can swap around players. But so if you do go for South America players, make sure you're whittling them down in the last few weeks here. So by the time we get to week 8, if you have 4 Sam players, you can only transfer 2 out, then you're getting no points for those Sam guys. So keep that in mind, and don't pick OC players to begin, and then you'll be all set. I believe the Sam and OC players are not up yet because those leagues haven't begun with their play-ins and all that. I guess Sam isn't starting this week. I'm not really sure what's going on there because of the server issues that we had this week. But keep that in mind when you're making your team. Now I'm going to show you my team here in a second. I generally don't follow too closely throughout the season because I'm incredibly busy, so I don't try and go for transfers and all that stuff. I tried 2 seasons where I really put it all into it, and it worked out. I won 1 season overall. It was before they were giving out prizing. Damn it. RL Garage, you owe me 100 credits at least. But that's okay. So yeah. Basically, we're going to have a head-to-head league in ours where, 8 different weeks, you'll play 8 different opponents. If it still is 8 weeks, who knows what fantasy is going to do based on however the RLCS schedule goes. We'll have an update. When we know an update about RLCS for North America and Europe, I will let you know in a future video. But that all being said, let's get to our team, and let's explain our team. So here is our team, our beautiful, beautiful team. Look at Casio, looking gorgeous as always. So here's my team, and here's my reasoning behind it. We're going to start with Scrub Killer on Mouse Sports. He's 1775. Last season on Vitality, when you're surrounded by insanely good players like Fairy Peak and K-Dop, generally scores go down, in my opinion, across all 3 players. Scrub kind of got the short end of the stick maybe slightly during league play, but he picked it up towards the end of the season. His saves per game are pretty good overall. I should have actually had my Octane stuff up here. I have it somewhere. Let me find it. I believe it's this one. Let me bring this over. All right. So his saves per game last season were still 1.90. Fairy Peak had more at 2.41. Now here's my thing with Mouse Sports. Scrub Kill has always been a very rotational defensive player. It really depends how they play. If Cookshear's hanging back and letting Scrub and Speed do their thing, that's one aspect of it. But if that does happen, that means Cookshear's probably playing that midfield defender, where it's not necessarily he's going to get the most saves, as long as they're not caught in their own end. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I feel like Mouse Sports is going to be a very up and down team. Very similar to what Vitality was last season, where there was a lot of shots for, a lot of shots against. That's what I'm banking on here. So Vitality players are relatively high priced because of that back and forth. You kind of get more points that way by playing both roles. So I think Scrub is going to try and do a little bit of everything for this team. He's probably going to get the highest score per game, I think, because they're going to try and feed him the ball. He might not defend that much. I'm not positive yet, but I'll have him as a defender to begin the season because I think usually he winds up getting a lot of saves no matter where he plays on the field. So that's why I got Scrub there. Next up, we got Justin as an attacker. Energy's whole job every single season, at least when it comes to league play, is feed Justin the ball. That could lead to assists. That could lead to goals. Who knows? Last season, it led to a lot of goals. He finished number 1 overall. I'm sorry, number 2 overall, but when you include playoffs, he finished number 1 overall. So he got a decent amount of goals, and it's energy, so you expect them to be pretty dominant once again. He finished with a decent amount of assists per game. I believe he finished 4th, but only like 2 or 3 assists behind the other guys, so not really that far back there either. So it really comes down to, like, I was thinking maybe a midfield role for him. I wasn't really sure where to put him, but I have faith that Justin will probably put up some goals. It really just depends. Do they save that initial Justin shot? We'll see. So I have him as an attacker for now. One thing I want to mention that I didn't explain, you have a budget. If this is the first time you're playing fantasy, you get $10,000 to spend. Every player has a price, as you can see here on our players. The other thing is your score is determined by a couple things. Obviously, score per game is just, you get points for that. When you score a goal, it is 50 points. If you get an assist, I believe it's only 25. Let me go back to the fake, actually, so that we can see that real quick, and then we'll come back here. 25 per assist, which I'm actually not a fan of. I think, bump that up to like 40 at least, because I feel like assists are pretty important to goals. Anyway, 25 per save, and then 15 per shot. Now, the difference is with attackers, midfielders, and defenders. The attackers, you get ×2 all your goals. So goals are weighted very heavily, which they should be. So you want your best players, if you think they're going to score a decent amount, put them in attack. Even if they have about even goals and even assists, put them in attack, because as long as they score, as long as they don't get twice the amount of assists as goals, then you're fine. And honestly, that's like that never happens. So you want your best offensive players in attack no matter what. Looking through here, like, let's see. Yeah, no one has ever had double assists over goals, I feel like, pretty much ever. There's probably been a couple outliers here or there, but it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen all that often. So keep that in mind. Defenders get double the saves, and saves, there's a lot more saves in the game than goals or assists, so it makes sense it's at 25. I still think you probably should do 40 for assist, personally. But let's go back to my team. So Justin, he's really good. Probably going to be in the running for another MVP. So I got him on attack. Midfielder, Violent Panda. So for Violent Panda, like, I feel like we saw Dignitas kind of find their form towards the end of the season with the World Championship. And, like, I don't know, like, Violent Panda to me is just that passer type, right? He's going to feed Astral. He's going to feed Yukio a decent amount. Last season, it didn't really work out that way. He only got 0.57 assists. That's still top 5. So he still finished top 5. The problem is they kept missing their shots. Astral plus Yukio missed so many shots. Their shooting percentages were miserable. So if those get picked up, which I think everyone assumes it will, Violent Panda should get a lot more assists per game. So that's why I have him there in the midfield. And I think Dignitas is a relatively strong team this season. So I have them there. One thing to note, like, I was looking at like score per game and goals per game and stuff between North America and Europe to determine like which region kind of scores more. Well, last season, North America scored more in terms of goals, I think by 0.8 or 0.08 goals per game. And they outscored EU very, very minorly. In years past, Europe normally does a tiny bit better. Last season, Europe had a historically low shooting percentage, I think the worst ever. So I think that kind of bounces back the other way, and I think Europe will pick it up a little bit. It doesn't really mean I picked more Europe over NA. It just kind of, like, I just played my money, and this is how it worked out, where I got 3-3. So I'll take that with a grain of salt, but hey, I think Europe will slightly, on average, outscore NA. Now moving on to another attacker, J-Naps. As you saw with the pro power rankings for the pre-show, and I believe my YouTube video will come out before this, JNaps and G2 ranked number 3. They came in 8th last season, but their offense, they put up a lot of goals. That's what they do. It doesn't matter if a team is terrible on defense, as long as they're putting up a lot of goals. Even when they were 8th in league play, 1.96 goals per game, that was number 3. Number 3 in the entire region. If G2 has a good season, and that's what the pros seem to be saying, they're going to put up a lot of goals. Honestly, I kind of want him and Chicago, but I could swap out Justin. It's possible and put them both on attack, and honestly, it's not a bad idea, but I'm going to keep Justin for the time being, just to, kind of not put all my eggs in one basket for G2 because I don't want to curse him. So, JNaps or Chicago, great pickups, I feel like, this season. So, because they're going to have probably a ton of offense once again. Not only goals, but just tons of shots and all that stuff, too. Because shots per game, number 1 in the entire region in 8th place. Pretty good. Next up, I have Gimmick. Gimmick, 1475. That is the lowest he's ever been. He had one of the worst seasons of his career. Lowest score per game out of all players in North America last season. I don't think that happens again. Now, I don't have as much faith in him as JNaps and Justin. That's why he's not an attacker. Plus, I think that Gimmick, he's the tip of the spear. I don't think he's going to be the one scoring that many goals. Or maybe I shouldn't say that many. He's still going to score a decent amount. But I do think he's going to be the one to put on that tough shot for a rebound out to his teammates. And in most seasons, Gimmick and Squishy kind of bounce back and forth with goals and assists. They're pretty much even, and they're normally near the top of the league. Cloud9, normally a very offensive-heavy team. They weren't last season. They had a miserable year. I think they bounce back a little bit more than maybe others do. But I have Gimmick on this team because I think the only way Cloud9 bounces back is if Gimmick plays well. So, that's what I got there. Defenders, Casio for Veloce. Veloce gave up a ton of shots per game last season. Now, Freaky made a lot of those saves. The problem is Freaky is a lot of money. He's $1,900. So I went with Casio because he's cheap, and he still put up a ton of saves per game. If we look over here, saves per game, try to find it for the Octane stats. I'll put all the links for the Octane stats in the description below, and I'll put the Fantasy Rocket League link as well, and as long with my league. All of those links. I can't talk today. Sorry. Anyway, Freaky had 2.65 saves per game. I don't think that's going to continue. I think it's going to be a little bit more of an even thing. Veloce, like an up and down team a lot. They gave up a ton of shots, but I think it's going to be relatively same. I think they will give up a lot of shots again. I just think their saves will even out a little bit more than last season. Casio, he finished at 1.87. That was still, top 8 or top 7, I believe it is, for saves per game. That's not bad. So I think he will get a decent amount of saves because I think Veloce is going to give up a lot of shots once again. I have them ranked relatively low, so I think they're going to give up a decent amount of shots. Some other strategies that you could do in fantasy. Look at the rival series teams. If there is cheap players, try and check them out for possibly defenders, because normally a ton of saves per game come from the teams that finish near the bottom. Now, that's not necessarily the case for the rival series teams. A lot of them have had success, but say for NA, we know those pro power rankings, both of the new rival series teams are 9th and 10th, so maybe look out for some of those players. But look out for players like that. We haven't shown the pro Europe power rankings yet, so you can't really base any of your fantasy picks on that, so I apologize. But for NA, G2, again, pretty valuable. They get a lot of offense done even when they're bad. And if they're good this season, which the pros seem to think they will be, that's a pick. There's some people I would try and avoid. 1950 for Sipical, I would try and avoid that because he put up huge numbers. I don't think that necessarily continues. It's hard to have fantastic back-to-back seasons unless you're a player like Justin. Honestly, we'll see if Sipical can put up those numbers, but I think Arsenal's going to get a little bit more involved and take away some of that limelight from Sipical, personally. Same with Freaky. I think Freaky's up here. He kind of did everything for his team last season, but I think he'll probably take a step back. Vitality's a weird one because they were an up-and-down team. I don't think they're going to be an up-and-down team like they were last season, so I think a lot of the saves per game go down for them. So Fairy Peak at 2.41, I don't think he puts up that many because I think they're not going to be that up and down again. Worst case, like if they're worried about Alpha's defense, then they leave Fairy Peak as a third man, and then he's just going to have less score per game in terms of goals and assists as well. Plus, if he's controlling that midfield, he might not get as many saves if he's playing that deep instead of more rotational. As you go down the line, there's players like, this guy's pretty good. Shawset, he does a lot for his team. He gets a lot of saves. Not a bad defender to pick up if you have the money. You can also use him as an attacker. He does pretty much everything for reciprocity, so you can use him wherever. Just don't use him for midfielder because, again, he scores a lot of their goals and he saves a lot of the goals, so just don't put him as midfield. As we go down, like some of the roster moves, we'll see, like Ronicky put up a ton of goals last season. Now, with Flakes coming in, I would question that because it's going to be a new dynamic, so I would be a little bit worried there. Some of the rival series boys here, but, you know, look to see who you want to get, but this is my team. I think it's decent. One thing you can keep track of is if you think teams are relatively weak, go to the league play schedule and see what teams play those teams every single week, and you could start transferring players where you're just following the worst team. You just try and have players that play the worst team. They'll probably get inflated scores, and you could always do that. I don't have enough time for that, so that's why I'm not doing it. But like, if I was trying to win, I would be looking into that. Look at week 1 when we see some teams, and if some teams get completely clapped, look to pick up players that are playing against those teams. And the problem is you have to work out your transfers because you only get 2 transfers every single week, so it could be a little bit hard. The good thing is there are no bye weeks anymore, so you don't have to worry about a player not playing at all. You just might have to hold on to him for an extra week. One thing to note, if they play 2 games in a week, watch out for that. Like, if you're happy that Mouse is playing one of the worst teams in the league, but if they're playing 2 games that week and the other game's against, I don't know, Vitality, say, they average those 2 games together, so it won't be as valuable when they're playing one of the worst teams in the league. Unless, like, obviously, Scrub could pop off in both of them. Who knows? But that is it for the fantasy look at. You got 4 days to sign up. The other thing I have to do, my league. Let's go over there. Here's my league. 831 is my league. I will copy and paste this into the description for YouTube, but I will try and accept people as late as possible. I probably will only accept until Friday night. I'll probably do one last pass at it. I usually forget Saturday morning because, I'm getting ready for the show, but if I have time and I remember to do it, I will accept as many as I can. I wish there was an auto accept feature, but I don't think there is yet for fantasy. But yeah, come check it out. Fantasy Rocket League, a lot of fun to do. You could win some credits. Not from me, because I saw someone in the YouTube comments say I promised credits last time in one of my other videos. I'm like, I didn't do that. I said that Rocket League Garage promised credits or promised keys. So make sure you win the entire thing, not just win my league. But once again, come beat me up. Fantasy League 831. Come sign up. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.